Hello and welcome to the Beginner's Handbook. I'm Jordan.
I'm Jamie.
And in this episode, slightly different, we're going to be doing a game review this time. So just talk about a game that Jamie and I have been involved in and just give it a wee bit of a breakdown and see how we felt it went and just maybe share some of our thoughts and just generally what the game was about. Might give you guys some ideas for yourselves, maybe listening or watching.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Alien Chariots of the God, which is a cinematic scenario from them, and it's going to work in pretty well talking about it because John ran it and I was a player, so you'll get both halves of the kind of the event, shall we say, and then again we'll just give our take on it.
Yeah, so really we'll just throw it to you guys to see, is there any games just we're curious about, any games that you've played or you've ran that was actually quite interesting, or maybe something different? Because for us, Alien was a bit of a different switch. I mean, we've done horror, but it was a different, completely new system and a setting not everyone was familiar with. I think yourself and maybe well, definitely one of the other players. So is there a game or a game you've played or ran that was maybe a bit different than what you've played before, or just anything that was interesting? I would love to know, just because it'll probably be something we might even try and play ourselves, especially if it's a system that we actually know. Because we've done a lot of new ones recently, which is good. We've had a great time doing it. But if there's an interesting one that's of a familiar system, then there's a very good chance we'll pick it up and give it a go.
Yeah. So as well as situations, scenarios, all that sort of stuff, even games as well, actual full-on systems and things. If there's anything like that kicking about, then let us know. If you're on YouTube, there's the comments or the other social media platforms as well.
Yep, so we'll just start, just for those, we actually have talked about Charity of the Gods in various episodes, and I've got like the other two, or is it three or four? There's either another two or three that I've actually got sitting on my shelves. We've not played them, or I've not read them yet, that's why. But they're basically, to summarise what it is, Alien, first of all, is like a super hardcore system. Obviously, if you know the Alien franchise, you know what basically you're getting in the tin. Super horror focused, super gruesome, very lethal, and yeah, there's usually an alien in there. Although they don't suggest putting an alien in if you want campaign play, because it's literally team, like you could wipe somebody out in a couple at a turn if you're not careful, with a really strong alien. So, but basically, it's the whole Alien system. I think it represents the whole Alien franchise. It wraps all of that perfectly into this game. It's kind of got a Mothership vibe for those who have played that. And if you've not played it or are unfamiliar, Mothership is it's actually free to get the rules, I believe. But it's a very small scale, easy to pick up game as well. Touches on a lot of the same subjects, which would be things like a super lethal horror in space. There's a lot of cosmic horror in Mothership, but a big focus on stress in both systems, which I think Alien has got some of the best representations of stress that I've seen in a long time. We are big Call of Cthulhu players, and it's got sanity in it.
Yeah.
But I think Alien just does a greater representation of the build-up of stress and how that impacts yourself and your other party members. It's really interesting. So if you not give it a go, or you're sitting on the fence about it, totally jump in and do it. It's worth the money to get even just a core rulebook, which gives you a scenario at the back. But anyway, that's Alien. But we're going to be focusing on the game, or the cinematic scenario, Chariot of the Gods, which is the first in, I think, the first three cinematic scenarios. I think that's like a set that they do. The way Alien is run is you've got campaign play and you've got cinematic play, and just campaign play is pretty much as it sounds. It's made for longer running games, something that's a bit more survivable, something that might run for more than a handful of weeks. I think particularly campaign play, there was an expansion within the last year which does or introduces the Colonial Marines, and it's got a whole series of generators for campaign play and things like that. So that's what campaign play is. This is cinematic play, and that's supposed to represent the films much better. So that would be very lethal, very quick, fast, bloody, short, succinct. It's supposed to represent that dread and horror of being stuck in space, probably with an alien. If you don't put an alien in it, people will be shocked to why you're not putting an alien in the Alien game. But yeah, that's what the cinematic scenarios are for. And Chariot of the Gods is almost like an amalgam of a couple of the films, but crammed into like they say 4 to 6 hours. I would say it's more like 3 weeks worth of games, and that's probably 3 hours a pop. I think all the games I've played of Chariot of the Gods, I think the 3 or 4 times I've ran it, it's ran on for 3 weeks each, one night per act. But anyway, that's a summary of what those two are and what a kind of campaign play is. Do you want to give a summary of the whole concept? Do you want me to do it? I ran it, so I know it a lot more. But it might
you introduce it. You give the concept, because there might be the odd thing that's maybe passed me by as a player.
So that sounds like Jamie didn't take any notes or prepare for that game. I didn't think I encouraged
prepare
notes
for this episode.
Yeah, but I didn't encourage notes because I wanted to scan it. I also didn't take notes myself. So, but yeah, so just to, we'll try and stay away from like big spoilers. Probably happy spoiling the first act, because that's like the bit that everybody's expecting in a game, and it's like the alien reveal and stuff. That's like the big stuff that happens later. And we'll touch on things that can be introduced later, but they are optional. I would maybe say if you're a player and you're listening to it and you've not played this game, maybe don't play it. Maybe send it to your GM instead, just in case. But if anything spoiler comes up, I'll say before I release the details, just in case. But at least for the synopsis or the summary of what, or the idea of what's going on, your group of players play on a ship called the USCSS Montero. They've to deliver fuel from some station to another part of the alien system. No idea, I can't even remember what it is. But the whole concept is they get put into hypersleep, delivering this very expensive fuel and very explosive fuel, and they wake up after however long it's been in hypersleep to see that their ships went vastly off course. And it turns out when they speak to Mother, are supposed to investigate a distress signal, which unknown origin. Well, they know the origin, like the pinpoint or coordinates of it, but the actual why it's been called is unsure. But the players will be given a kind of general, this is what you need to do in a distress call. And I think the way Mother words it's pretty much just recover valuables and rescue the crew if they need rescued. It's kind of general stuff you'd expect from a distress signal. So that's basically it. You're just a delivery crew, basically space truckers, and you're delivering this stuff to your destination, only to find out you've been directed to a distress signal, which eventually becomes a USCSS Kronos. And the crew then board it, and that's when things get real bad. That's when you realise there's something very wrong with the Kronos, which is a much bigger ship than the Montero. And then it gets bad from there, pretty much. That's that's all we'll say for now. But it gets crazy. There's a lot of great opportunity, and I say great because that might sound like a standard game, but I think the cinematic scenarios in particular that Alien does, because a lot of pre-gens and stuff have this, but the way Alien's built is it encourages it for working towards your goals and agendas, gives you story points, and that's the stuff that can be really helpful for his story points give you an instant pass, if I remember right, or re-rolling fails. I can't remember which one it is. So it can be very good for like surviving a game. And in the cinematic scenarios, the NPCs that are provided are given very strict, and you can change them, but you've got agendas for each one and an agenda for each act as well. So it gives players a really good seed for roleplay. And there's a lot of opportunity for PvP in this one, and we've talked about PvP before. I totally recommend listening to it. We've probably covered Alien in it too, to some level. There's probably spoilers in that one. We won't go. Well, we'll see where the night takes us, I suppose. But a lot of great opportunity for roleplay, but also in a way that's a lot of fun rather than like dead frustrating. Because I've seen PvP that's been frustrating, and I think this one does a really great balance. Of just introducing that. We did do that and make that kind of clearer. At least I spoke to people who were going to be having PvP, and I think I said to you as well that there might be agendas that maybe don't align. So there was a bit of a heads up. I never said you'd all try and kill each other, but I did say that there's some maybe room for headbutting, but all in game, of course. But.
Yeah, and one of the things as well is when you get the the pre-gen, so you've got your character there and you go through it. It gives you basically who your best bud is and who your most hated fellow passenger is.
Oh, that's right, the buddy and
So,
rival. That's
yeah.
right, I forgot about that.
So when you get the sheet and you've got that there as well, even if you weren't kind of explicitly told that, you know, you will have your own agenda and, you know, you will try and make that happen, even if you're not told that, then when you see the buddy rival bit appearing, then, you know, you're getting that heads up. But again, like Jordan was saying, it gives you that chance to, if you're, you know, not as comfortable role playing or anything like that, it's giving you that kind of point in the right direction as to kind of where to start taking things and what to do. And again, conflict between players at the table in game rather than out of game, just in case that wasn't clear, can be difficult to manage. It can be difficult to pull off, like Jordan was saying, successfully without, you know, people at the table feeling hard done by, betrayed, or, you know, whatever. Whereas because everybody turns up and everybody knows that your agenda might not match the person opposite you, but you're all trying to work to achieve your own goals anyway. So you're a you're a team asterisk until that no longer suits you, and then it's every man for himself.
Especially if you play the corporate agent, which you played with a very scarily similar name as well. But yeah, I think it's great. I mean, maybe we'll do some spoilers, but I think for me, what's really good about it is it balances. I think most people, and there was a couple of us that didn't know it. I mean, I know the Alien stuff, but I'm not like a super fan. But I did run it for guys who, some of them hadn't really played a lot of games. Alien was actually a gateway for a couple of the guys there, who one guy decided to give in and admit that he liked role-playing games after it, and someone else had basically never played a role-playing game, and they got viciously eaten apart, ripped apart by an alien, and then told me the next week, I'm buying like all this stuff for D&D. They probably spent over £100 on D&D stuff, even though they played a game in a horror theme that they hate. They hate horror, but they still really like the game. So I mean, it shows even, you know, it's a good way to get people together, in a way that they can actually enjoy the hobby itself. And I think with these bits of PvP, there's really good elements of that. I mean, I love running horror, so obviously for me, it's a good fit for myself. Yeah, I know Alien a lot. Other than the two folk that didn't really know it in that one of the groups I ran for, the rest of them are big Alien fans. Like at least 3 of the 6 folk. I think it was actually it would be 3 or 4 of them, because that would have been the rest of them. I'm sure it was 6 folk, or was it 4? It doesn't matter. Most of them were big fans of Alien, so it was for roleplay purposes. Some of them weren't very comfortable with it, but because they knew Alien, they could roleplay easily. They knew the setting. They knew kind of, a lot of them were following just the movie storylines and making the same decisions, but that's what they enjoyed, and it made it a great experience. And then when the PvP kicked in, it was awesome. They loved it, and it got messy real quick. I'd say as well, one thing I forgot to mention, but what's really nice with the Chariot of the Gods is they put in a nice little, it is optional, but you can put in a nice little an android, so I can have a posing android who's from, I think it's Seekson or something. Now, if there's not enough players for it, or you don't want a player to have it, and you're maybe a GM with one of the PCs, like you're playing a PC, you could make yourself the android, but I like to give it to somebody else just to do which one. I think the guy got away with it right up until the end. Don't think it was even revealed until the last little sequence we did in our game. But
pretty much, yeah.
Anyway, I love it because it's got the acts. It's very much how I structure my own games. They use kind of events. It's a bit confusing if you're not familiar with it, but there's a good structure to it. It's very clear, and yeah, I think it's familiar to enough folk that even if they don't like horror, most people at least know of Alien and what to expect. So you don't need to worry so much about trigger warnings and stuff if that's something you do at your games. But yeah, I think it's just a good fun, and it's a good fun few weeks worth of work, and worth of game. Sorry, I totally recommend it if your group's into stuff like Alien. You guys were a blast to run for. at least I just enjoyed all the PvP. They killed one of the players. I think you killed one of the players once, and the other guy like booted them into an alien's hands. We've spoken about this before, but
I was trying to work out if I killed the same player twice.
I can't remember. I think you definitely done it at least once.
One was definitely me, and I think the other one,
It was in spacewalk.
I was the devil in the shoulder going.
That's it.
That's
right.
I think I can't remember. It was a wee while ago now, but yeah, that was the thing as well. Like, because like D&D in general, the way most people will do it, and the way in general it's set up is you're all working together for the same goal, and it's the same with a lot of other games and a lot of other systems. But with this, like, you're sitting and again you read it and you get your agenda and you go, right, okay, I need to go and, steal a document or whatever it is. Don't want to give too much away about the game, but you read it and you go, have I got the worst one or have I got the nicest one?
Mm-hmm.
That starts to play into your head as a player in it, which then gives you a different kind of problem solving sort of challenge to overcome, which is, right, is somebody else out there even more even more ruthless than me? Is there somebody else out there that's got a bigger prize to lose? So it's injects a nice little bit of kind of paranoia in the games.
Yeah, it's a healthy amount of it because everybody that's played it's instantly going, oh, and with the guys that are into Alien that I've ran it for, they're going, who's the android? And then they don't show themselves because the player was like perfect. Like they totally convinced other people that they were not an android. And what's really cool for me, like, 'cause that's almost like my review of that whole game. But even just the game that we ran, I think the flow of it works really well, and like it's a heavy focus on maps because it's like a big ship and stuff, which fair enough.
Yeah.
I tend not to enjoy them as much just because you've got to have it set up and then are you printing stuff out. I've started adopting just for like literally scribbling stuff on a big bit of paper on the table now, just so I can draw the map as we do it. But I tend to like a lot of games that you can play without requiring all that setup, in case, for me, like a lot of times I've been to conferences and things and I don't have the flexibility to have all that stuff brought up. Maybe you're an impromptu game one week, so you can't prepare all the materials. So I like games that you don't have to do that. But this one, if you get the Chariot of the Gods game, it comes with everything you need for it. And I've used the same thing. It comes with maps and all sorts. And
again, that from, again, a player's point of view and a player with a poor imagination's point of view, is that rather than having to rely on your imagination and what you think, and because it's involving navigations through a ship and all that sort of stuff, it means that players aren't getting mixed up. Somebody doesn't think somebody's in a different section to where they are. Somebody doesn't think that dungeons are at the front of the ship and that's where they're wandering off, when in actual fact it's way behind them, all that kind of thing. So it keeps everybody tied together, whilst still helping set the scene and everything. So in terms of that, it's useful and it's there.
Yeah, and I think for like what's good about this, because this is a game as well that for one of the groups I had, it was about 6 months between finishing Act 1 and picking up Act 2. And this wasn't our game, but the acts are actually very, very well constructed in a way that's easy to remember them, because when we played it, the guys and I played it after 6 months of a break, just because we had other games and people were off and people were working, etc. It literally took like 30 minutes and we were right back in the flow. As a GM, actually running it makes it very easy to prepare, because you can go, right, I can read Act 1 and you know exactly where you got to. It's kind of like the end of Act 1, you get a big alien reveal. I think Act 2 is about I think it's like finalising your plan, like, okay, this is what we've got to do. I think maybe that's the start of Act 2. But Act 3 is basically trying to get the hell out of there, basically. And there's an option to be bringing in a whole nother ship, which I've never actually used yet, because I've been running it for 3 weeks at a pop, and I only ever would have wanted to bring in, I think, what's it called? So USCSS Sotillo, I think it's called. It's got a whole nother crew on it, which I would actually give out as NPCs if somebody died,
Yeah.
because this game is very lethal. And what I do appreciate about it is it gives you all the NPC stats, but you also get all the kind of main PC stats, which have the changing agendas. But if they die, it's okay to kill them, because it was the dice's fault, it wasn't yours. Because of the way you have to do your monster rolls, you kind of delegate the blame to their dice. But if they die, you can literally just slide them over in your sheet. That's it. Just keep it moving, keeps the story going. And I always had this third ship as like a backup, but because it ran on 3 weeks, I've never felt the need to do it.
Yeah,
But if I ever introduce it, then it's great. You've also got, like, other than like face hugger type or being infected with aliens that will burst out your body, there's a whole thing about a vaccine to stop you being infected, and then you've got a whole conundrum about that. Do I take it? Do I not take it?
Yeah.
And that's a whole different series of arguments and questions that happens. The big thing, the kind of big conflict, which I think distracts people from the PvP aspect, and especially the robots, is you have this other crew who are infected or seem to be infected. You've got these mutants running around, but then some people are having aliens burst out them. But it seems like the people who have aliens bursting out them haven't had a vaccine, in which, it's a big bit of black goo. And if you've seen the films, you'd know where that's going. But you have this whole conundrum about taking it, because if you fix the air scrubbers, which you need to do when you're starting the new ship up, it's like there's a whole thing about, is the air infected? Do you need to keep your suits on, your space suits on, to keep your air pure? There's a whole bunch of things going on that it just introduces a lot of paranoia, and with the stress on top of it. Stress is like one of my favourite bits about Alien, because stress doesn't seem like a big deal. Whenever you like get stress, you roll stress die, and if you're rolling that one on stress die, you panic and you just do a roll. It's kind of like rolling the table, see what you get. But the more some of the results on the table boost everybody's stress, including yourself around you, which makes your pals more stressed, which makes their rolls more at risk of panicking, and then maybe making you panic too. And all sorts. It's just a really clever system, in my opinion. I think it's great for horror games, just even that concept. And we've used it for other games that my pals have ran that maybe didn't want a rule heavy system. I mean, it's got a fair amount of rules in it, but certainly for what the guys wanted, I think somebody wanted to do a Star Trek game, if I remember right, and we used Alien for it. We just used the same rules. I think they just didn't bother with stress. That was it. So it's dead easy to adapt as well. But for sure, I think it's a great game to play. But that particular cinematic scenario, it's got all, as a GM, it's got all the beats that I want. Especially the way it's structured, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to plan the game. We even had a guy that made his own character, and it was a squish. I went, yeah, go ahead and make your own guy, and I just gave him the agenda of one of the NPCs.
Just merged it basically.
Yeah, that was it. So even for that, people can customize it to the nth degree, and just give them. You can make up your own agendas if you want, or you can offer just giving them some that are part of the story. If the benefit of doing the ones that are part of the story is it helps keep the group kind of a unit. If you customize everything, then you're going to need to have a reason that they all stick together and stuff. But other than that, it's a scoosh. So
and from again the player's point of view, the story, the situation, again, pacing is ultimately always going to be kind of, you're relying on your DM for that, or your GM. But the way the story is, how the story sort of slowly unfolds, and then all the new challenges that then gives you, again, is good. The pacing's nice of it, and each situation that happens, it's not like you're going from one kind of unbelievable cataclysmic disaster to the next one that you somehow manage to scrape through. It's each thing ties into what's already happened, and it always feels like it's building on something. It never feels like you've suddenly been kind of sideswept into, a completely different adventure that's somehow been mashed together just to put out a publication, just to, tick some boxes because somebody's decided that they want more money in the till or anything. So story's good, pacing's good from it, and having that other crew that you turn up to, and again, like Jordan was saying, it's then they appear to be infected. There's a vaccine there. Do you take it? Do you not take it? and each of those situations that gets thrown up, you've then got something new that you then need to figure out, right, does this person over here, are they wanting to take it as a bluff, a double bluff? Are they just panicking? That's why they're taking it, so it throws up all sorts of different questions for you. And again, when we were playing it, when we got to that situation, I was like, nope, I'm not taking that vaccine. I don't trust this particular player. I don't trust the fact that everybody is just taking this random group of people that we've never met before, their word for it, especially since some of them appear to be showing signs of being infected. So why are they now still insisting on taking it? What's the point in that? Each situation, and at that point you go, maybe I am becoming as paranoid as my character. I don't know. But, that doesn't detract away from what you're trying to do. That conundrum, that just adds to everything that's going on. And that small thing, which gives you that query about, again, it just adds and emphasizes, because if you're starting to question small things like that, then it means overall the bigger picture, which is get the kind of more obvious bits of doubt added to it and things like that. It's then emphasizing that state that you're in, and it's keeping you in that mode.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what makes it work so well. It's just all these different bits, and it is very well constructed. I found that out of all the games I run, this one could potentially be the biggest mess to run. I'll go into a wee bit of spoiler territory just because it might help describe some of the bits. So if you've not played it and you're going to play it, just stop, because I've already gave some spoilers, but they're not the end of the world. But this is like huge spoilers. So there's so much PvP opportunity in this. You've got PvP, just buddies and rivals already hate each other. You've got the corpo that doesn't care about anybody. I think their ability is just to chuck one of your pals in front of the danger, which can literally one-shot some of the other players. It's really vicious. Like, the game does not hold back, and I love it for it.
Yeah.
You had that one, didn't you?
Yeah,
was that your guys' one?
Yeah, and that's how I killed one of the
Oh, that's
players.
what it was. That's so maybe you did kill two people.
Playing the game, I desperately wanted to use it. I desperately wanted to use it because, like, out of everything we've ever played, there's never been a sacrifice the person next to you. I've never came across that, and I went, I want to make that moment happen. So, if you're like me and you also want that to happen, if you're playing it, then try get yourself in the middle of the biggest group possible. Maximise your chances of that happening.
Yeah, and this is what I think I love so much about just how it's done, because it allows, and the thing is, you can do this in a lot of games. I've never thought about doing it. But this game, the way it's built, and especially I think these cinematic scenarios are structured in such a way to give in some of this stuff that obviously we've seen in the films, or if you've seen the films, what you've seen in the films. But I think for me though, what's crazy, what's so much fun about this scenario is that from the get-go, you're pretty much screwed. You've got these guys that once the Montero ship's arriving at the Cronus, you've got the Sotillo guys who's from Seegson or someone else. I can't mind. They're coming from somebody else, somewhere else to spy on you to see what's going on. So that's like actually a potentially hostile group, depending how the players communicate with them, if you even have them in the game, which I've not even done in the 3 or 4 times I've run it. But you go in, it's literally as soon as the guys go in, there's a dead guy there, he's blowing his head off with a shotgun. You're like, oh god, alright, okay. Then you meet these guys, and it turns out the vaccine you get, it does stop the infection. It does stop you getting the kind of weird spores that flies around the ship and gets an alien bursting out your head. However, it does also turn you into a mutant, so you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's all this stuff. And it's honestly, it's so much fun to play, and everybody I've played with, at least as far as I can tell, have had a blast. I'll just say a couple things for it. I would say is I really do like it, and that's clear. But I would say maybe some of the downsides for it would actually be having handouts and stuff is pretty handy. I would definitely recommend using the pre-gens, and not everybody's for that. I know if people don't like horror or violence, probably not the game for them, even though I did have somebody that doesn't like horror or violence. I think the alien ripped their leg off or something within the first round of combat and then decided to keep going at them. I just rolled and stuff. That's just what the dice said, I promise. But so it's dead lethal, and PvP can be something that it can be awkward. Not everybody's for it. We are comfortable with our group and the other guys I play with as well, or the other groups, and they're good too. But it's not, PvP can be something to broach carefully if people are getting a bit into it. I think the guy that ran it for us the first time, I think I introduced a bit of PvP and it was just kind of awkward because nobody knew each other, and I think he was playing one of the guys if I remember right, but he was fine, but it came across abrasive and I could see it was rubbing some people the wrong way. It was all in character, he didn't mean anything by it, but I just remember stuff like that being quite distinct. So it's just be aware of that coming into it. And I would also say it's almost absolutely going to end in TPKs, even if you divvy out every NPC that's in the game, which is I think about 9 or 10 or maybe 11 people that you get access to. It's probably going to end in everybody dying or turning into a monster and dying subsequently anyway. So it can be, I think it can be a bit hard with all these overarching threads of PvP. You've got the whole vaccine basically a death sentence, or not taking it also being a death sentence. You've got a lot of potentially one-shot kills, like literally anyone could kill. I think it's got 3 turns in a round. It can literally kill 3 people in one round. Like that's it. And it's very difficult to kill it as well. So it's challenging. So it is not for everyone, just for some of the reasons I've outlined there, but it can also be quite difficult to run for the same reasons. So it might feel a bit hard and a bit confusing. I'd say that the main rule book is a bit difficult at first getting through it. So I don't think it's 100% clear sometimes. But so that's just there's some of the wee downsides. But overall, I think if people are a fan of horror games, it's totally worth getting the rule book and one of the cinematic scenarios, or scratch that, get the starter set, which Chariot of the Gods comes with, and I believe it comes with a map and it comes with supporting material and pre-gen sheets and stuff. It's like 25 quid, I think. So I would totally recommend getting that. So
yeah, and kind of similar type stuff. If you are a totally new player, again, maybe not the best one for you.
Yeah, if you're into Alien, if you're into Alien, I'd say it's easy to get into because you know the setting well enough. So, but if you're running it for people who are brand new, which it was brand new to the guys or everybody I've ran it for.
Yeah.
However, most people, not everyone, are familiar with role playing games, so it's not a hard game to remember. It's usually just roll all, whatever your modifier number is. Let's say your strength, and that's your skill equals 6. You roll 6d10, and any 10's a pass, and that's it. That's basically it. It's said simple, but just if people are brand new, and it is a bit of a shift from what normal kind of dice pool systems are like, so just bear that in mind. But
yeah, so that, and depending how comfortable you are with your group, and then when you've got the player conflict through the different agendas and stuff, again, if you're a bit shy, you're a bit timid or whatever, maybe not the best thing for you. But that being said, I would say stick to the pre-gens, because then nobody's too precious about the characters. So then if you do die, not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much like, it's a very quick summary of that game, but it's one that I think back fondly of because I've ran it quite a few times. But I mean, if it's 3 or 4 times, that's 9 to 12 weeks worth of games that I've ran of Alien just with the one game, and I've literally got 2 more cinematic scenarios and the one at the back of the core rulebook that I've not even touched yet. So it's definitely worth the money, I would say. But yeah, I think we'll just leave that little game review there. Clearly, it's a positive thumbs up from me as a GM and from Jamie as a player. A couple of wee downsides. Like I said, I prefer games that you don't have to rely on maps. This one, by nature, it's really map heavy. So that's a bit of a downside for me. I like being able to just be flexible. But like, if you're going to play Alien, you may as well do it right.
Yeah, and again, ultimately, if you don't have the maps and all that sort of stuff, just draw your own ship.
Yeah, you can do it without it, but it really benefits having a map. But you describe there's a lot of rooms, so you can do that at your own risk, unless you're drawing your own map, in which case it's not as bad. But yeah, cool. So that's really it from us. Just wanted to give you a wee bit of a game review. It's something I might come back to just because we've got so many games that we've played. And there's so many we keep talking about. And I bet you there's a bunch that we've not talked about. And it'd be nice just to bring some of the really good ones to the attention of folk. But yeah, so that's it really from us. Do you want to just take it over to the socials?
Yeah, so said earlier at the start, so if you're watching or listening on YouTube, we've got comments underneath that you can let us know what you've been playing recently and if we should check it out or if there's anything that we should avoid. And you can do that as well through Facebook, through Twitter, there's Instagram and Discord kicking about as well.
Yeah, so that's really it from the both of us. So we just want to say thanks again for listening and or watching, and it's bye from me.
And me as well.